Welcome back, everybody, to Bucs Planet Podcast. Buccaneers get a huge win this week. I considered it a must-win. Pretty much everyone considered it a must-win after the embarrassment that we saw against the Saints. The Bucs bounced back big this week, and I'm going to, of course, explain why and how that happened. And to get this started, I would first like to address some of the issues. And I know, we did great this week, but there's always some things to clear up. And we're going to go ahead and do that today. So let's talk about the slightly bad, because there were some things that wasn't terrible. There were just some things that were slightly bad. Like, you know, it was funny about this game was because in the beginning, like, you know, Ronald Jones had that fumble, and I was just like, oh, here we go. I mean, this is the statement. It was our first offensive drive since the Saints game, and then we go out and we fumble, we turn the ball over. I was like, oh my gosh, not again. And I thought for sure, yep, they're going to pull Ronald Jones the rest of the game. I mean, that's it for him. Time for the Leonard Fournette show, and boy, was I wrong about that, and we're definitely going to get into that. So the Bucs offense did not start off well. The Bucs didn't start off well, because after they turn the ball over, the Panthers go right down the field and score on the short field, and there was a miscommunication in the defense on the fourth down. It was 4th and 2, I believe, and Sean Murphy-Bunting and Carlton Davis incorrectly passed off their zones. It left a guy wide open. Defensive miscommunication, and then set the Panthers up to score the next few plays. And then, of course, I'm thinking, well, here we go again with the defense. We don't know how to execute zone coverage. And then the defense didn't really start to get better until about halfway through the game. They were still getting gashed every play. Teddy Bridgewater only had 1 incompletion in the first half of the game, I believe. So it wasn't great defensively in the beginning. So there's still some little issues, because if you actually look at the Bucs' defensive stats in the first quarter, it's not that good. We definitely need to clean up how we look in the first quarter of games, because that can really, you know, make a statement to the team. You want to say, like, hey, we're going to go out here, we're going to fight hard, we're going to look good, and then it fires up the offense, fires up everyone, fires up me, fires up every single person. And so they need to improve doing that. There's still minor zone issues that they were having with the communication and how to pass them off when certain motions happen, and that's a little too complicated for you guys. I understand. I'm not going to sit here and explain to you how that works. But what I will say is, then after that, the only other complaint that I actually have two more. I have 2 more minor complaints. The special teams was, I mean, the kicker's great. I'm not going to, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say that the kicking problem's solved. Okay, we're going to knock on wood for that. Because you don't want to jinx it. But, you know, we're having a lot of consistency at the kicker position. He's been the best kicker we've had in the last decade since Matt Bryant. That's a fact. But the special teams, Joe Haeg specifically, gave up a blocked PAT that kind of changed the game a little bit. It changed the game a little bit, so that was not good by Joe Haeg. And then we also gave up a kick return in either the third or fourth quarter that went all the way to the 4-yard line. So that's not good either. So there's some minor special teams miscues. The special team still isn't perfect. They need to perfect their tackling, because even if you look at the Bears game, they had a couple. I mean, every kick return Cordero Patterson had on us was pretty long. I mean, no touchdowns, but they were pretty long returns. That changes, you know, the odds of scoring, because, you know, the difference between being at the 20-yard line and the 40-yard line, that's a big difference. But, you know, 20-yard difference. You're going to score a lot more times when you're at the 40 versus the 20. So that definitely needs to be cleaned up. And then obviously I already said that, you know, the blocked PAT by Joe Haeg. And now let's get into why we did good. What happened from last week to this week? Well, first of all, Brady was pissed off, which we like. We like Brady mad. And I know that's not really like a great thing to say. Like, you don't normally like people mad. But as a football fan, as a person who wants Tom Brady to do well, you guys and me, you want Tom Brady mad, because that's when he plays well. And Tom Brady was mad this week. He was pissed about the Saints game. And he went out there and probably had and you know, a lot of people said, and, you know, I might argue this as well, that he had the best game of the year against the Panthers last week. It was the best game of the year so far. Again, there was minor red zone issues, and it wasn't necessarily Tom Brady's fault. There was a drop by Tyler Johnson. There was some iffy play calling. There was, even though he did well, Byron Leftwich had a good game plan. There was, again, some minor issues in the red zone with play calling. And we settled for too many field goals. I mean, the Bucs didn't punt once in the whole game, which is unbelievable, considering how many times we punted last week. And yet, we could have, Suckup had, I think, 3 field goals that were under 30 yards. That means you're only like 10 yards away from scoring, 10, 15 yards away from scoring. You got to score. And we could have put that game away early instead of it being close late and then we run away in the end. A win's a win, obviously, but there were some red zone issues. They definitely need to clean that up. But that's the last thing, probably like bad thing I will say, except one more thing, which I'll get into later. But Tom Brady looked great. His stat line was he went 28 for 39, 341 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a 124.0 quarterback rating. Fantastic. Fantastic. He could have had more touchdowns if Mike Evans didn't get he was so close. Mike Evans was so close to scoring again on one of them, and he got tripped up. So Tom Brady could have easily had 5 touchdowns and a rushing touchdown, so 6 total touchdowns. The Bucs, I'm not even joking. The Bucs, if they didn't kick those field goals and they scored instead, the Bucs would have put 70 points up. That's how good they looked. The Panthers' defense looked terrible. The offensive game plan was good. It was good. It was good. I'm not going to say anything bad if it was a good game plan. And Tom Brady played good. There was, again, there's a couple calls I was like, eh. But, so that looked good. And here's the interesting part. So Ronald Jones, honestly, he's like probably had he easily had the best game of everyone last week against the Panthers because Ronald Jones fumbled on one of our first drives, and normally, like it was in the Giants game, he just gets benched. But this time, Arians decided to keep playing him, so they put Fournette in for a little bit, but not that long, and they played They played Ronald Jones, and the interesting part is that he played so well after that point. Let me read you. Ronald Jones had 23 rushing attempts for 192 yards, 8.3 yards per carry, and he had a Buccaneers record 98-yard touchdown run. That is amazing. It really is. And I'm not a huge Ronald Jones fan. For obvious reasons, he can't catch. He still can't catch. He's not super explosive. But, hey, he had a great game, and he deserves all the credit. A 98-yard touchdown run, yes. I understand that a lot of it was the blocking. The blocking was great on that play, and he really only had to make one man miss, but that's still hard. It is hard, no matter how good the blocking is, to run a 98-yard touchdown in the NFL with NFL defenders that all run basically under a 4.5. And he ran 98 yards, beat them all. Fantastic. I loved it. And I was happy to see him do well. I have Leonard Fournette on my fantasy team, so it was a little bit like, are you kidding me? I want Fournette to get those points. But it's like at the end of the day, I don't really care. That was just kind of me, joking. But I was very happy to see Ronald Jones play that well because the Bucs need a consistent running back. I understand that, having a two-headed monster is for running backs is kind of like the new thing. And I get that, but you always need to have the one guy who's clearly the starter, and then the other guy kind of fills in to keep the other guy's legs fresh, and they kind of complement each other. That's what I'm looking for. And that was proven last week. Ronald Jones, clearly the more explosive back at this point, even though I said he wasn't that explosive. He's more explosive than Fournette. Fournette's been okay. He hasn't proven to me that he's better than Ronald Jones. I would say he's more consistent. And, honestly, if you throw out his entire college career, which, you kind of sometimes have to do, you have to say, okay, if we're not going to include how good Leonard Fournette was in college and how, he almost won the Heisman, all these things, and then you just think of, okay, now let's look at their NFL careers and how they're playing now, you would have to give the nod to Ronald Jones. I think a lot of people, including myself, were biased towards Leonard Fournette because of the fact that he was so good in college and was pretty good on the Jaguars, but not, fantastic. So, again, I was very happy about Ronald Jones. The blocking was great, and, the reason why the blocking was great was because Bruce Arians made a great call, and he switched up the offensive line. So our best offensive lineman, Ali Marpet, who's our left guard, is out again because he has a concussion and is in concussion protocol. And the Bucs decided to shake up the offensive line after how bad they played last week. And because of Ryan Jensen's snap issues, they moved Ryan Jensen to left guard. And we put our backup center in to start at center. So instead of having Joe Haig at left guard, we moved Jensen, our center, to left guard, and then we got our backup center and started him at center, which is, I believe his name is J.Q. Shirley? I think it's something like that. This is semi-embarrassing. I didn't look this up beforehand. It's kind of hard to... He has a weird name. It's something Shirley. And, regardless, he played well. And Jensen played great at guard. He played better at guard than he did at center. That's a fact. So now, I'm sitting here thinking, well, when Ali Marpet comes back, he was going to take a spot at guard back. And then it's like, okay, well, then Jensen goes back at center. And Jensen's not that... a lot of people are big Jensen guys. I'm not a big Jensen guy. His snaps aren't good half the time. The snaps are just all over the place with Jensen. Sometimes he'll snap it early. Sometimes the snap's inaccurate. I want a more consistent center. Jensen's not really my guy, to be honest with you. And I think he'd be better at guard. And that guy we put in at center this week, Shirley, I believe is his name. Why is this annoying me? I knew his name. This is annoying. Okay, for literally AQ Shipley. I was close. It's AQ Shipley. I thought it was JQ Shirley, but AQ Shipley was the one who started at center this week for the Bucs, and he played good, and none of his snaps were bad. He had all good snaps, and I liked him. I liked him better than Jensen. It's going to be kind of hard to start him over Jensen once Jensen moves back to center, because Jensen's like one of the highest paid centers, if not the highest paid center in the league. So that's going to be mildly an issue there, because it's obviously not going to happen. So hopefully, Jensen's days here, I think, are numbered. He needs to really get the snaps need to be more accurate, and he needs to block better for center. He was good at guard, though, so we know he can block good. And he's just been kind of inconsistent. And that switch by Bruce Arians was just one of the best calls he's made since he's been here to change up the offensive line. Now that looks like they had great chemistry on Sunday, and that was a big reason why Ronald Jones had all those rushing yards, 192 yards. And I understand if you take away the 198-yard run, he had under 100, but that's a lot. 92 yards, 192 yards. That's a lot of yards, and the blocking really was good. It was, and the only person who didn't play that well was Donovan Smith. What else is new? He didn't play terrible, but he didn't play great. He got absolutely blown up on an end around at one point in the game to, I think, Antonio Brown. It looked terrible. He did that. He looked terrible on that play. The pocket collapsed several times because of him. There was several miscues. Donovan Smith just isn't that good, and he played a lot better than he did last week. But he didn't play that good still, so it's, he won't be back next year. He won't be back. We're going to get a new tackle, probably through the draft or somewhere else. He's just not going to be back here. I'm not super... At this point, his fate is sealed. His fate is sealed unless we somehow, miraculously go on to win a Super Bowl and he plays great the rest of the season. At this point, his fate is pretty much sealed. And the Bucs, again, don't owe him any more guaranteed money after this year. So, see ya. Some other things. Look at my notes. A lot of notes today again. A lot of notes. Again, the Bucs didn't punt once. That's amazing. And honestly, it was kind of an underrated part about the game, because the Bucs literally could have scored 70 points. And I already said that, but that's just kind of amazing. And one thing that did irritate me, though, is Kevin Minter, the Bucs backup linebacker, who hasn't obviously played a lot this season because he's the backup, but he's played in years past. He's just kind of a rotational guy. He had a fantastic sack on a fantastic play call by Todd Bowles that confused the offensive line and had all their offensive linemen blocking people, and they didn't pay attention to Mentor, who came in free from the edge and sacked perfectly, a textbook sack, not helmet to helmet, textbook sack of Teddy Bridgewater, and it was flagged for a penalty of roughing the passer. I mean, it was called roughing the passer. You have got to be kidding me on that call. You can look up the play. I posted it on my Snapchat story for most of you that have me on Snapchat, and it was a terrible call. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, it didn't really change the game at all, but I kind of felt bad for Mentor because he's a backup. That was a really good play. He's put in a great position by Todd Bowles, and then it gets taken away because of a horrendous call. You know, nothing you can do, but now here's an interesting topic. Antonio Brown had 7 catches for 69 yards. He had a good game. He looked good. He caught every ball. His hands look great. His route running's pretty good. Antonio Brown looks good. But that's not what I was worried about. I wasn't worried about if he was going to be good on the field. I was worried about if he was going to be good off the field. And yet again, there's another Antonio Brown story. Another Antonio Brown story. He allegedly, reportedly, threw a bicycle at a security camera at a community center near where he lives in Hollywood, Florida, a couple weeks before the Bucs signed him. And of course, I was super mad, as every fan was. Every fan read this news and was immediately freaking out, like, what the heck? We need to cut him. This is ridiculous. I mean, he should have been arrested, but then they said the community center security officers, and this is literally what they said. They said, we are afraid of what Antonio Brown will do if we attempt to get him arrested or sue him because he's Antonio Brown and he's crazy. That's what they said. You can look that up. That was their statement on it. And Antonio Brown since then obviously has offered to pay for the whole thing, pay for the security camera to get fixed. And they kind of resolved it that way, but it's not a good look. It's not a good look. I mean, all the Antonio Brown supporters out there that really have no idea what they're talking about and should not even be listened to, you know, they're going to defend this, and, you know, even they can admit this is not a good look. It's not a good look, and, you know, but then Bruce Arians comes out today and says he's a model citizen, and we love you, Bruce, but he is not a model citizen, let me tell you. Model citizens don't throw freaking bicycles at security cameras. I don't think that's what model citizens do. I mean, that's just my opinion. I mean, my model citizen does not throw bicycles at security cameras. I mean, maybe that's just me. I don't know. I mean, apparently that's just me. And look, I will support Antonio Brown and hope, and I don't want him to do bad. I want him to do good. It's just I know he's going to do something stupid, and that's the issue, because he literally already did something stupid. And yes, oh, well, he wasn't on the team. Okay, 2 weeks before we signed him, this whole message was when he was suspended the first 8 games of this season and gets reinstated. There's all these things. His whole message is, oh, I'm a new person. He's been saying it for weeks and weeks, and now it's like, oh, clearly you're not, you idiot. You literally just had another stupid incident 2 weeks before you got signed. So Antonio Brown is who he is at this point, and, you know, hopefully, you know, I mean, it's honestly a crapshoot. Like, is he going to do something stupid again while he's with us? I have no earthly idea. And if Antonio Brown wasn't one of the best receivers when he was in his prime, and maybe, you know, maybe he can come back to that, but if he wasn't one of the best receivers at the time, he would not be in the NFL. I mean, let's just call it what it is. In professional sports and really in life, the better you are at your job or at anything, the more chances you get. And Antonio Brown's on, like, his, I think, 6th chance, if I counted that correctly. Let's see. Let's go through the list of Antonio Brown stuff. Oh, yeah. You guys already know I wrote it down. He had the issue where he threatened to retire because he didn't have a helmet incident. He sat out a Steelers game because he was irritated. I can't remember why, but he sat out of the game where if they would have won and then another team would have lost, they would have made the playoffs. So that game absolutely mattered. And Antonio Brown just didn't show up to the game because of issues with the head coach and multiple other things. He he made all the teammates mad with all his antics in Oakland. He then gets signed to the Patriots for his third chance because the Raiders gave him multiple chances. He failed all the chances, and they actually had to cut him after signing him to one of the biggest contracts for a wide receiver ever. Then the Patriots sign him for his fourth chance. Then he gets accused of sexual assault, which is, I think, is 100% true. And then he gets cut. So now it's like, okay, well, I mean, you've had freaking 4 chances, 5 incidents, and you blew all of them. And then here we go again. Oh, and then he throws rocks at a truck driver and gets arrested for it. So 6. And then now he's on our team, and then now we have this entire throwing bicycle at security camera thing. I mean, come on, guys, come on. It's just the 1% of fans the 1% of Bucs fans that actually support Antonio Brown. Come on, it's ridiculous. Let's just get over it. Get over yourselves. You can say he's a good football player, and I'll agree with you, but don't lecture me like some of you guys have been doing the last couple weeks. Don't lecture me on how he's changed. Don't do that. We both know it's a waste of time. You just have to hope he doesn't do anything stupid when he's with us. It's true. Now, someone else who looked really good was Gronk. I mean, this fired me up right here. I mean, did you see that catch? Tom Brady throws it deep, and Gronk makes the catch. It's a perfect throw, obviously. Tom Brady, greatest quarterback of all time. And Gronk makes the catch, and not only does he make the catch, the defender wraps around him and just falls right off because Gronk just steamrolls him and continues on going. He looks like the vintage old Gronkowski, and I loved it. I loved it. I really did. I loved it. And that fired me up. I was like, oh, we got the old Gronk, baby. Let's go. Another good part was Jason Pierre-Paul had a sack, one of which injured Teddy Bridgewater, which, you obviously hope he gets better, but he did have a sack. And he had an interception. That was kind of fun after he dropped one against the Saints. And, a lot of people like to make jokes because he only has like 3 fingers because he blew 2 of them off in a firework accident like 5 years ago. And now he got an interception, and people are, having a great time because he had an interception with only 3 fingers on one of his hands. So that's obviously, a lot of people like to make jokes about that. But that's impressive to me. And the fact that he's a defensive lineman that got an interception when Todd Bowles called another great play call by Todd Bowles, because again, I really, really like Todd Bowles. And he had a horrible game plan against the Saints, and it slightly worries me that he could do the exact same thing against Monday Night Football next week, where Bucs are in primetime again. We have been petitioning to get us out of primetime. There's literally petitions that you can sign as Bucs fans to convince the NFL to move us out of primetime because we don't belong there. And you bet I signed all of them. You bet I already signed all of them. Y'all need to sign them. Y'all need to sign these petitions. The Bucs need to get out of primetime. Okay, but in all seriousness, JPP dropped a pick last week, and he got a pick this week. And it was a great play call by Bowles because it confused Bridgewater, where JPP dropped back into coverage and Bridgewater didn't see him or expect him to do that, so he throws it, and it looks like he throws it right to him, but obviously it was just because it was a quick play and Bridgewater didn't see him, and it was just a great defensive play call. And honestly, the Bucs just had one of their best games of the year against the Panthers. Tom Brady definitely did. And now this was a great bounce back. It was a great win. It was a win that we really, really needed. And now, here we go again. Here we go again. We're going on Monday Night Football. And remember what I said. The Bucs should be 0-3 in primetime games. We lost to the Bears. We should have lost to the Giants. And we lost to the Saints. All in primetime. We have looked horrible in primetime. I did read in the paper this week that Arians switched all of the primetime games to, he switched all of the practices this week leading up to the game. He switched them to at night to get us ready for primetime because there's something wrong. Our game plan our game plans have been terrible on primetime, and we just look terrible. Why do we look terrible? I don't know. And I said this before the season. I was like, the Bucs are horrible in primetime. Uneducated Bucs fans that have no idea what they're talking about. These people that are constantly chirping in my ear, and I have to listen to them because that's just what they do. They think they get so excited when there's primetime, but they don't understand the Bucs have historically been so awful at primetime that every time I see a primetime game, I'm like, hold your breath. If it was up to me, I would have every single game for the Bucs at 1 o'clock on Sunday. Every single game. And then maybe 1 or 2 games at 4 or 4:30. Every game 1 p.m. That's my thing. Bucs do not need to go in primetime. And I said Brady's been great in primetime. The Bucs haven't been. What's going to give? Is Brady going to be great in primetime and lift the Bucs up and do all these things in primetime? Or is the Bucs going to get the better of Brady and we're still going to be terrible in primetime? And so far, it's been the Bucs. It's hard to beat. It's hard to beat the Bucs, honestly. It really is. And hopefully things can start to turn around because there's no reason why we should be playing bad in primetime. It's almost like, honestly, I think for the last few years, and for honestly the last decade, I think primetime's just kind of been in our own head because we've just always played bad in primetime. And I think it's already in our heads this year, and we need to get out of it because if we make the playoffs, I mean, most of the good playoff games are all in primetime. Super Bowl's in primetime. NFC Championship, that'll be in primetime. Divisional round, it'll probably be in primetime. Wild card round, it'll probably be in primetime. So we got to get used to playing in primetime because we're going to be doing it in the playoffs, hopefully. So we need to be doing it now so we understand how to do that in the playoffs. So the Bucs have a huge game, and I know I said this, that the game against the Saints, that was the biggest game they've had, the Bucs have had, and since the Super Bowl, since the biggest game of the decade for sure, and including the 2010s, not this decade of 2020, okay? I mean, whatever. And this game on Monday night, this game's a big one too. This is one of their bigger ones. And some other interesting news is Jameis Winston, our boy. I mean, look at my shirt right here. Florida State. I'm at Florida State. It's the college I go to. And Jameis Winston is going to be starting for the Saints. And I have my roommate has a Jameis Winston picture right over there. I had a Jameis Winston poster. I mean, I don't anymore because he's a scumbag. But, I used to look up to him. And don't get me wrong, because, a lot of people are like, they like to clown Bucs and Florida State fans because all they do is support Jameis. No, I support the Bucs before I support Florida State, okay? Like, I'm sorry about you. I'm sorry, but no, you are going to take a heavy backseat to the Bucs. Factual statement. And I hope Jameis throws 8 interceptions every game he plays with the Saints. And honestly, if you guys want to know my dedication, I follow a lot, I used to follow a lot of Florida State accounts, like Florida State football accounts. And ever since, Drew Brees got injured and he had a couple cracked ribs and punctured a lung, actually, in last week's game against the 49ers, and Jameis played half the game, and Jameis will now get the start for at least the next few games until Drew Brees returns. And, all these Florida State accounts that I follow, I followed them since I was 8. Since I was 8 years old. I'm just kidding, I didn't have an Instagram when I was 8. I was in 2nd grade. Whenever I got an Instagram, 6th or 7th grade, that's when I started following these Florida State accounts. And, I mean, jeez. Terrible. And then now they all started posting, Jameis is back with the Saints. Let's go cheer him on. Go Jameis. Go. And I looked at those accounts. I said, what? Excuse me? What? And then I had this coming of age moment. I had an epiphany. I sat there. I was like, what am I doing? I'm following these accounts. All they do is support Jameis and not the actual Bucs. Why am I following them? So I went and I unfollowed literally 6 FSU accounts I've been following since I was 13 years old, and I don't care. I mean, goodbye. You want to post about Jameis? If you want to post about Jameis succeeding with the Saints, and if you support Jameis Winston, you are not a Bucs fan. You can support Jameis. You can. It's not illegal. And I personally kind of like Jameis still. And maybe if he goes to a different team and there's significantly different scenarios happening than the one right now, maybe we'll see how he acts. But after he just clowns us on and eats the W and does that whole thing and dances in our locker room. Well, in the away locker room for the Saints last week after he didn't even do anything, and then he starts doing all that dance and stuff. You cannot support Jameis and the Bucs. That's a fact. That is a fact. And I'm a Florida State fan. I used to love them. Okay? And I'm admitting that you cannot support Jameis and the Bucs at this point. It's conflicting interests. It's like supporting the Soviet Union and the United States in the 1980s. No, can't do it. Gotta pick one. So when all these stupid FSU accounts post about, oh, Jameis Winston. Oh, Jameis Winston, I can't wait to see him play for the... No, goodbye. Goodbye, get out of my life. No. And that's when I said, look, I cannot support Jameis and the Bucs, and it will be the Bucs every time over FSU. So goodbye, FSU accounts. Lost all respect. You said you want Jameis to do well with the Saints. Couldn't disagree more. That was like kind of a rant, but I just had to get that off my chest because it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. I'm sick of it. But let me tell you, this is going to be a big game Monday night. And guess what? I'm going back to Tampa tomorrow. Today's Thursday. I don't know if I actually end up posting this today. But I will be going back to Tampa on Friday, November 20th. And guess what? I want to say this for a long time. I am going to be attending a Bucs game. Not the Monday night game, but the game against the Chiefs. I will be going to that game. I'm super excited. Okay, like homecoming for me. I love it. I love it. You guys know I love it. You watch these videos and you know that I love it. And I'm excited. And the Bucs need to win on Monday night. They need to win on Monday night. They need to prove that they're just not a horrible primetime team. Because again, we're going to be doing the playoffs. Got to do it now. And yeah, so again, I would be... There's going to be a big podcast after Monday night's game, regardless of what happens. There's a lot of stakes on the line. And I kind of went off track, but the reason I mentioned Jameis is because the Saints are ahead of us by one game. And originally I was like, oh, division's over, not even ours anymore. And because of the fact we got swept by the Saints, they have every tiebreaker, and we're probably not going to have a better record than the Saints. And then if we have the same record, they're going to win. So I was like, oh, the division's over. But now with Jameis, ironically, will determine the fate of the Bucs playoff seeding. Again, Jameis Winston, if he goes in and loses these games that he starts, the Bucs will take control of the division again and most likely win it. So there's a lot on the line here. And Jameis Winston, again, has the ability to determine whether we have good playoff seeding or not. Very ironic, very ironic. But I guess we'll see. And I feel like the Bucs now at least have a decent shot because the Saints don't have Drew Brees in to possibly win the division. So that's going to be big. So pay attention to the Saints with Jameis Winston, who play the Falcons this week. And then obviously the Monday night game, it's huge, and that's going to be big. I'm going to probably have a lot to say after that game regardless if it's a win or a loss, especially if it's a loss. I'm probably going to be losing my mind depending on how we look. The Bucs need to look good on Monday night. It is a must. It is a must win and look good in prime time this week. And yeah, that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you liked it.